at 106.71. We do have economic data to watch for today. We get a report on retail sales at 8:30 Wall Street time. Industrial production and capacity utilization are out at 9:15. And it's business inventories and the JOLTS jobs report at 10. And FedEx is among companies scheduled to report earnings today. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Michael Barr with more on what's going on around the world. Michael, good morning.
Good morning, Karen. Senate Democrats are proposing a coronavirus aid package with at least $750 billion to boost hospital capacity, unemployment insurance, and other direct aid for American households, businesses, and the healthcare industry. Leaders in Ohio called off today's Democratic presidential primary to combat the coronavirus. Ohio Governor Mike DeWine said late last night that the state's health director declared a health emergency and ordered the polls closed. Election officials in Arizona, Illinois, and Florida said they were moving forward with plans to vote. Major League Baseball has pushed back opening day until mid-May at the earliest because of the coronavirus. And there's word the Kentucky Derby is being postponed from May to September because of the pandemic. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Nathan.
All right, Michael, thank you. We are live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studios, where it's coming up to 5:20 on Wall Street. Let's bring in our first guest on this Tuesday morning, Jane Foley, head of FX strategy at Rabobank, as we continue to grapple with the potential economic impact of the coronavirus. Of course, Jane, we heard yesterday the president invoke the R word. I wonder whether we're in one now, a recession.
Well, it's quite possible, of course, that we will see a recession confirmed, maybe at the end of the second quarter, maybe into the third. But I think most people would agree that that is certainly the risk that the U.S. runs, and not just the U.S., of course, several European countries as well. And Japan certainly could be in a recession already, having already printed a negative growth rate from the end of last year. So whatever you look at it, whichever way you look at it, clearly the global economy is facing a hugely adverse year in 2020. That said, of course, we did see stocks moving a little bit higher in Asia, and I think if we look at the Asian news, they are ahead of us, of course, in terms of the coronavirus battles, and there have been a little bit of good news from China, traffic levels rising again in Shenzhen, Taiwan, South Korea, perhaps having some degree of success in battling the number of new cases, etc. But I think, all in all, we've got a long way to go before we see light at the end of this tunnel.
Well, in terms of Asia being ahead of us and potentially the Asian side of the world seeing light at the end of the tunnel in terms of the spread of coronavirus in that part of the world, do Asian currencies become more attractive now?
Well, I think maybe it's too early to tell. I mean, certainly I think given the battles that we still have throughout the global economy, I think there's still going to be a shortage of dollars. I think banks are going to need dollars. If we look at cross-currency basis swaps in euro and in yen, we can see that there's still really stressed levels there. So from that point of view, I don't think anyone's really going to start pushing back into, say, emerging market currencies, albeit in Asian emerging market currencies just yet. Now, clearly, the yen is a little bit different to that. It's a G7 currency, and it is a safe haven too. So the yen is likely to remain, well bid against most other currencies. And of course, the interesting one is against the dollar, because there is this shortage of dollars still. There is this fall of liquidity in global markets, and in that environment, that's exactly when people do need dollars. So for the time being, I think it's the dollar is king. The yen will remain pretty firm because of the safe haven, but I think it's perhaps too early to really expect many investors to really try and push back into other currencies just yet.
Do you see the dollar then as almost the only safe haven at this point, as we're seeing, as you mentioned, weakening in the yen, and even the Swedish krona is seeing a weakness on the session today?
Well, I think what you have really in the last 10 or so years, you've had this enormous growth of demand for dollars and for just transactions. So, for instance, if you consider the emerging markets, if you consider the growth of China, if you consider the growth of a country like India, and other emerging market countries, they need dollars for transactions. So just for demographics, there's been this huge increase of need for dollars. The Fed have known this. If you go back a few years, if you go back to some of the essays written by Bernanke when he was discussing how the U.S. balance sheet, how the Fed's balance sheet, how far it could fall when they stopped doing quantitative easing, it was known that there was no way it could get back to the levels it was before the global financial crisis because of this demand for dollars. But you come into a situation where corporates are stressed. They're going to be looking at the credit lines that they have with their banks. They're going to want to make sure that they've got the dollars there if they need to spend them. So there's a little bit of panic buying, I suppose, for dollars. People need to ensure that it's there. And that's why, from practical purpose, the dollar is the real safe haven for most firms. From a speculative point of view, yes, you can imagine that the yen is going to remain firm. Historically, it is a safe haven. The Swiss franc, the same sort of thing. But it's not necessarily yen or Swiss francs that corporates around the world need to cover their costs and to pay for transactions and invoices. That really is the dollar's purpose.
Thanks so much for your insights this morning. Always good talking with you, Jane. That's Jane Foley. She's a head of FX strategy at Rabobank. And after seeing gains at the beginning of the session, European stocks are continuing their declines now. And futures in the U.S., after hitting limit up overnight, we're seeing those futures deteriorate before our eyes here with S&P futures higher now by just 11 points. That's well off session highs. Dow futures are higher by 126 points. NASDAQ futures a gain of 73 points. DAX in Germany and the CAC in Paris both down 1.4%. You're listening to Bloomberg Daybreak.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. The global stock rout took another dramatic turn yesterday. Stocks plunged the most since 1987 after President Donald Trump warned that economic disruption from the coronavirus could stretch into the summer. The S&P 500 sank 12%. The Fed and other central banks have dramatically stepped up efforts to stabilize liquidity. But so far, the moves have failed to boost sentiment or improve the fast deteriorating economic outlook. Cash handouts to all U.S. households are gaining support in Congress as the best way to shore up an economy brought to a near standstill. GOP Senator Mitt Romney proposed sending $1,000 checks to every adult American. And Republican Senator Tom Cotton said he's working on a bill that would provide cash stipends. Several House Democrats also back sending checks as the best way to help households. And among economists, the idea is rapidly gaining support. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their businesses strategically. Yet the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating system, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
Determination and operational strength are both essential factors for growth in asset management. I'm Steve Meyer, President and Head of SEI's Investment Manager Services Division. We know that disruptive forces create opportunities around the world. If you see potential in change, our industry specialists will maximize SEI's integrated platform of data and risk management, global investment operations, compliance support, and investor services to position your asset management business for success. Come grow with us.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise.
I can find and fund my car, from a Mini to a Jaguar.
Feel good car buying from findandfundmycar.com is the place where you can find quality used cars from trusted dealers rated by you, and where you can fund your car with finance to fit your budget. It's feel good car buying, all in one place.
Shouldn't be a carry on, choose findandfundmycar.com.
They call me the drum guy, beating around London, one gig to another. I carry my tom-toms, bass and stalls, snares and cymbals, hi-hat. Won't mind a helping hand while I board a taxi. That's why I choose Ola. With driver's quality assessed by DriveTech, ride the change with Ola. Download and sign up now. Enjoy no surge pricing until the 12th of April.
The world of antiques is about to get an Irish shake-up in a new TV series only on Blaze.
I'm on the road with my best mate to find the antiques that tell the stories of Ireland.
Meet the Junk Rockers, out striking deals for hidden treasure.
Would you take 500 quid for it? And you throw in a couple of free points? That's deal. Deal. It's a bargain.
From the makers of Salvage Hunters, the UK premiere of Irish Pickers starts Thursday at 9 on Blaze. Freeview Channel 63.
Hey, have you heard? The Mayor of London has launched his latest van scrappage scheme to help tackle London's toxic air. Small businesses or sole traders like me with a polluting van could now get £7,000, which you could use to trade up to a Euro 6 vehicle. And you could get an extra £2,500 towards running costs if you go electric. The scheme is now even easier to qualify for, and it's open to any businesses with up to 50 employees, like mine. So, I'm going to search TfL Scrappage to see if I'm eligible and apply. You should do the same. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Mayday, Mayday, this is Red Dwarf. Our engines are dead and we're being sucked into a black hole. Can anyone hear me? Over?
The only thing that's over is us, Crichton. We're finished.
Guys, relax. I've got Smart Breakdown with the AA. It sends them your vehicle's fault data, so they should know what's wrong before they even get here.
I don't believe it.
What, that they'll already know what's wrong?
No, that you're actually capable of something useful.
The future of breakdown today. The AA. Drive smart. See theaa.com for details.
Casting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Daybreak.
And it's 5:30 on Wall Street. Good morning. I'm Karen Moscow.
And I'm Nathan Hager. Bloomberg Daybreak brought to you by BNY Mellon's Pershing. Learn why the world's most sophisticated advisory firms and broker-dealers rely on Pershing to help them improve profitability, create efficiency, attract talent, and manage risk at Pershing.com.
And we're just about 4 hours away from the opening of U.S. trading. Let's get you up to date on the news you need to know at this hour. U.S. futures were gaining overnight. They are now far off session highs. S&P futures have actually turned lower now, down about 3.5 points. This is after yesterday's 12% plunge. It was the worst day for stocks since 1987 and came as President Trump issued strict new guidelines to slow the coronavirus outbreak.
Schooling from home when possible. Avoid gathering in groups of more than 10 people. Avoid discretionary travel. And avoid eating and drinking at bars, restaurants, and public food courts.
The president concedes a recession is likely. He's also pressing for ways to assist U.S. airlines, which are reeling from restrictions on travel.
We're going to be in a position to help the airlines very much. We've told the airlines we're going to help them. They want $25 billion. But we're going to be helping. We're going to be backstopping the airlines.
Airlines are pushing for $58 billion in aid. Meantime, the House has passed a bill to alleviate some economic fallout from the virus. The measure now goes to the Senate, which could pass the bill today.
Well, so far there are more than 4,000 infections in the U.S. and more than 70 deaths. The outbreak continues to spread in Europe, where leaders are also working to stem the fallout. Here with the very latest is Bloomberg's Selena Wang.
Italy has now been under lockdown for more than a week. Cases there have reached nearly 28,000. French President Emmanuel Macron ordering people to stay at home for at least 15 days, except for essential activities. France is also guaranteeing up to 300 billion euros of bank loans for companies. This comes after Germany lined up as much as 550 billion euros of emergency loans to companies. Meantime, EU's leaders are also proposing a 30-day halt to non-essential travel.
So far, more than 2,100 people in Italy have died from the virus. Worldwide, the number of infections has surpassed 178,000, with more than 7,000 fatalities. Scott Meinert is Chief Investment Officer at Guggenheim.
The risk we are facing is that this thing could spiral into something akin to a global depression. That risk is not remote at this point.
And that concern now has the S&P 500 off its peak by 30% this morning. U.S. futures are now extending their declines. S&P futures down 24 points, Dow futures down 223, and NASDAQ futures down 27. And straight ahead, we have the latest world and national news. This is Bloomberg.
All right, Karen, thank you. It's 5:33 on Wall Street, and Michael Barr is here with more on what's going on around the world. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Nathan. The city that never sleeps is asleep. Bars and restaurants in New York City are closed starting today because of coronavirus fears. Gyms and movie theaters are dark today as well in the city. New Jersey and Connecticut also closed bars and pubs. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo wrote an op-ed in the New York Times saying the nation needs to get ahead of the disease. Cuomo later talked about his idea for President Trump during an interview.
Let's get ahead of it, and let's bring in the Army Corps of Engineers, and let's start building temporary medical facilities because we know we're going to need them.
At least 10 people have died in New York State because of COVID-19. 3 people died from the virus in New Jersey. In Northern California, about 7 million people are living under shelter-in-place orders. Bloomberg's Ed Baxter has the story.
This stretches through the major counties of the area, including the major cities of San Francisco, Oakland, and San Jose. In Silicon Valley, the Santa Clara County Public Health Officer, Dr. Sarah Cody.
All businesses with a facility in any of the 7 Bay Area jurisdictions, except essential businesses, are required to cease all activities beyond minimum basic operations.
San Jose Mayor Sam Liccardo says the time for half measures is over. Time to move aggressively. In San Francisco, I'm Ed Baxter, Bloomberg Daybreak.
It's the first step in the long process to find a vaccine for the coronavirus. U.S. researchers have given a health volunteer the first shot of an experimental COVID-19 vaccine. Dr. Anthony Fauci is the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases.
The vaccine candidate that was given the first injections for the first person took place today. You might recall when we first started, I said it would be 2 to 3 months, and if we did that, that would be the fastest we've ever gone from obtaining the sequence to being able to do a phase 1 trial. This has been now 65 days, which I believe is the record.
The study is run by scientists at the Kaiser Permanente Washington Research Institute in Seattle. Experts say it will be at least a year before any vaccine is ready for widespread use. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Nathan.
Thanks, Michael. 5:35 on Wall Street. Time for the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update. Here's John Stashower.
Nathan, opening day in NFL free agency, though nothing becomes official until tomorrow. The Giants and Jets, both with salary cap space, have added a piece. The Giants have a deal with cornerback James Bradbury, formerly with Carolina, and the Jets will sign tackle George Fant away from Seattle. He'll replace Kevin Beachum, who's a free agent. The Jets had an interest in another lineman, Graham Glasgow, but he signed with Denver, and they were in it for former New England linebacker Kyle Van Noy, but he's going to Miami. The Dolphins were big spenders. They made Byron Jones, the ex-Cowboy, the highest-paid cornerback in the NFL. They also signed guard Eric Flowers, who the Giants drafted 9th overall in 2015. He was a complete bust as a tackle in New York, but played better having switched to guard in Washington. The Cleveland offense has added tight end Austin Hooper, a Pro Bowler last season in Atlanta, and tackle Jack Conklin, who leaves Tennessee. The Browns will also add veteran quarterback Case Keenum. The Raiders are getting a new QB, Marcus Mariota. The Cowboys, having franchised Dak Prescott, were able to re-sign Amari Cooper for 5 years and $100 million, so Cooper stays put. But 2 wideouts on the move. Stephon Diggs traded by Minnesota to Buffalo, and in the shocker of the day, DeAndre Hopkins traded by Houston to Arizona. While the NBA is talking about returning in June, baseball is targeting mid-May, at least at the earliest. The Kentucky Derby, held every first Saturday in May since 1945, will this year be run the first Saturday in September. With the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update, I'm John Stashower. Nathan.
All right, John, thank you. It's 5:37 on Wall Street. The latest edition of Bloomberg Business Week is on newsstands now. The entire issue is devoted to the coronavirus, including the benefits of social distancing. Justin Fox contributed to the issue of Bloomberg Business Week.
If people aren't as squeezed as close together in the office, then there's a little bit less risk. I mean, it's not like I'm doing some heroic thing, but it does reduce everybody's risk a tiny bit.
Read more about this and other stories in this coronavirus special edition of Bloomberg Business Week on newsstands now and online at businessweek.com. Terminal customers can receive a complimentary subscription at MAG Go. And listen to Business Week with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly right here on Bloomberg Radio, or watch it on YouTube weekdays from 2 to 6 p.m. Wall Street time. Get global business, finance, and tech news on your TV, computer, or mobile device. Just visit youtube.com and search Bloomberg Global News. It's 5:38 on Wall Street, and that's time for the Tri-State Business Report with Bloomberg's Ed Corey. Good morning, Ed.
Morning, Nathan. Bars and restaurants are now takeout only, and businesses from movie theaters and casinos to gyms are closed throughout New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, all because of the coronavirus. Essential businesses like supermarkets and gas stations have been allowed to stay open. JP Morgan Chase and Citigroup told employees if they can work from home, they should do that this week. The move is another in a series of efforts to prevent the deadly coronavirus from spreading among staffers. New Yorkers apparently are still in the mood to buy luxury homes. 21 contracts were signed for Manhattan apartments priced at $4 million or more last week, even as the coronavirus outbreak canceled public gatherings and people were searching for food and cleaning supplies, according to Old Shan Realty. That's your Bloomberg Tri-State Business Report. I'm Ed Corey. Nathan?
All right, thank you, Ed. It's coming up to 5:39 on Wall Street. Bloomberg Radio is on the air from San Francisco to New York, London to Hong Kong. Let's check in with our global news team for some of the top stories heard on our 300 affiliate radio stations around the world.
I'm Courtney Donahoe on KTRH in Houston. Pioneer Natural Resources slashed its capital spending plans for the Permian Basin.
I'm Steve Podeskin on 1010 Wins in New York. We're talking about old world retail sales data before the coronavirus impact.
I'm Roger Hearing on Bloomberg DAB Digital Radio in London. We're reporting on plans for additional government support for the virus-hit UK economy.
I'm Jeff Bellinger, and on WTVN in Columbus, I'm reporting that PC monitors are in short supply now as more workers set up home offices in response to the coronavirus.
Those are some of the stories our 2,700 Bloomberg journalists and analysts are working on this morning around the world. Some other important stories we're following for you. The two largest U.S. theater chains are closing all their locations in this country today. AMC says its theaters will be closed 6 to 12 weeks. Regal's is closing its cinemas indefinitely. Elon Musk is signaling Tesla's auto plant in Fremont, California is going to stay open. He's telling employees to come to work if they feel comfortable doing so. Musk hasn't said whether employees who don't come in will get paid. And in Las Vegas, billionaire Sheldon Adelson is keeping his casino open. That's after MGM and Wynn Resorts announced they'll be shutting down on the Vegas Strip. U.S. futures extending their declines after opening and hitting limit up in the overnight hours. S&P futures are down 17 points now. Dow futures lower by 113. NASDAQ futures giving back 7 points. You're listening to Bloomberg Daybreak.
Why do hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing for a highly personalized experience? Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of Prime Services, explains.
In today's fast-paced environment, where the only constants are change and volatility, you need a prime broker who's both steady and agile, focused on supporting your needs so that you can focus on growing your business and producing results. Exceptional client service and advocating for our clients is at the core of what we do. Our award-winning high-touch team is just one of the benefits of working with BNY Mellon. We help alternative investment managers create great experiences for their clients. Whether it's customized financing, securities lending solutions, platform access, or outsourced trading, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and dedicated to meeting your evolving demands.
To learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers, visit Pershing.com. Pershing, LLC. Member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
Message and data rates may apply. T&C and privacy terms can be found at babbel.com/terms. Please don't text and drive.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then try Babbel for free by texting EXPLORE to 64,000. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just text EXPLORE to 64,000 and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or text EXPLORE to 64,000 and try it for free. Text EXPLORE to 64,000.
Night is still young, but a little late to get into the wrong ride, don't you think? That's why I choose Ola. With secure start codes unique to every user, there's no way anyone can ride a car that's meant for you. Good night.
Ride the change with Ola. Download and sign up now. And get up to £15 vouchers. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey, have you heard? The Mayor of London has launched his latest van scrappage scheme to help tackle London's toxic air. Small businesses or sole traders like me with a polluting van could now get £7,000, which you could use to trade up to a Euro 6 vehicle. And you could get an extra £2,500 towards running costs if you go electric. The scheme is now even easier to qualify for, and it's open to any businesses with up to 50 employees, like mine. So, I'm going to search TfL scrappage to see if I'm eligible and apply. You should do the same. To the Mayor of London and TfL. Every journey matters.
Where will 2020 take you? Somewhere where people care. About each other. About our planet. About creating a better world for everyone. And becoming the best versions of yourselves. Join a community of like-minded individuals at the University of Winchester. Apply by the 31st of March for a chance to win your first year in halls. Visit our website to find out more. See the bigger picture. Be the difference. Go to winchester.ac.uk.
At the Bank of Santander, they've created Stan, a smart bot that can predict the future of remortgaging.
I'll read Stan. Will my mortgage rate go up?
1955 was the last time Newcastle won the cup.
No, and try not to mumble.
Playing, let's get ready to rumble.
Meanwhile, at Santander, they can't predict your future, but they'll help secure it with great mortgage rates fixed for up to 10 years. See what's possible at Santander.
Early repayment charges apply. Lending subject to status and criteria. Your home may be repossessed if you do not keep up repayments on your mortgage.
Hey, big ears.
What?
Have you heard?
What?
Ford are offering £20 off a spring service.
You what?
That's right. £20 off when you book online using code FORD20. Problem is...
What?
We're rabbits.
Book now at Ford.co.uk or search Ford Service. Retail customers at participating Ford dealers cannot be used with other Ford service promotions. Only one voucher per customer per booking.
Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update.
Another historic day for traders on Wall Street.
The Dow had its worst single-day point loss in history. The stock index was down all day, but then there was a sharp sell-off before the close, and it ended the day down 2,997 points, almost 13%. Prices kept dropping as more travel restrictions were announced around the world, and President Trump said coronavirus could be with us until summer.
There's Steve Kastenbaum. The Senate is likely to pass the House's coronavirus bill today.
Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, who worked closely with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi to draft the family's first legislation, was dispatched to Capitol Hill late Monday. He huddled with Senate Republicans to discuss the House-passed coronavirus package. Shortly after that, Representative Louis Gohmert dropped his objections to the bill. That paves the way now for the Senate to pass the bill as early as today.
There's Linda Kenyon on Capitol Hill. I'm John Trout.
Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrow.
Is that good for American finance? What is happening with the head count?
Right, where it counts. Bloomberg Surveillance, weekday mornings at 7 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Market, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. U.S. stock index futures reversing an advance and European shares dropping as investors struggle to find their feet after the biggest plunge on Wall Street since 1987. Treasuries are falling alongside the yen and gold, and contracts in the S&P 500 and NASDAQ 100 indexes at one point rose by their daily limits this this morning. Right now, S&P futures, though, down 5 points. Dow futures are down 16. NASDAQ futures are higher again, up 36. The DAX in Germany is down 2.2%. 10-year Treasury down 26/30 seconds, yield 0.80%. The yield on the 2-year 0.36%. 30-year yield 1.37%. NYMEX crude oil up 1.2%, up 30 cents at $29 a barrel. COMEX gold is down 1%, down $14.90 at $14.7160 an ounce. The euro 1.11 against the dollar. British pound 1.2164, and the yen 106.55. The yen at 83.03. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Michael Barr with more on what's going on around the world. Michael.
Karen, Italy reported another jump in infections, up more than 3,000 to 27,980 coronavirus cases, with 2,158 deaths, including 349 more in just the last 24 hours. Italy now accounts for well over a quarter of the global death toll. Cases, however, slowed in Lombardy, the hardest hit region. The governors of New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey agreed to close bars, restaurants, movie theaters, and casinos starting today. The governor said essential businesses like supermarkets and gas stations will be able to stay open. Major League Baseball has pushed back opening day until mid-May at the earliest because of the coronavirus. And there's word the Kentucky Derby is being postponed from May to September because of the pandemic. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Nathan.
All right, Michael, thank you. We are live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studios, where it's 5:49 on Wall Street. And our next guest this morning is Peter Dixon, global equities economist at Commerce Bank. It almost feels like I have to keep our listeners updated on where the markets are from minute to minute, Peter. As Karen was speaking, they were lower, the U.S. futures contracts were. Now we're swinging back up again after hitting limit up overnight, and of course after the 12% plunge for the S&P 500 yesterday. What do you make of this increased volatility?
Well, I mean, on the one hand, you would say it feels like a panic, and it feels like investors are just dumping everything and then getting back in again when they see some good buying opportunities. But the reality is that investors just have no idea where the chips are going to fall. I mean, many of the businesses that they are invested in at the moment are struggling very badly, and I think investors have genuine concerns as to whether they will still exist in 6 months' time. So this kind of volatility, the movements we're seeing in markets, the huge swings in the VIX, they're all, I think, indicative of a market which is trading uncertainty rather than risk, where risk is something you can price, and uncertainty is something that you just can't. And this is uncertainty squared. This is the most uncertain market I think I've ever experienced.
I suppose reflecting that uncertainty is the message we're getting from governments. It was only just a couple of days ago that the White House was downplaying the idea of recession. Then we heard from the president just yesterday. He thinks we could be headed toward a recession now, and Morgan Stanley is saying that a global recession is now their base case. What's your view?
I think we're moving towards that view ourselves. I mean, I think it's inevitable that there will be a huge hit to activity in March. And as we head into April, things will probably get worse. The consequence being, of course, that, over the spring, we'll see significant declines in activity across large parts of the industrialized world. And then the question is, well, what kind of recovery will you see after that? Given the damage that's going to be caused to the corporate sector, given the damage to the supply side of the economy, as workers are still unable to return to work, it's likely that this could persist for quite some time. And as a consequence, it does feel like we're sitting on the edge of a recession if we're not already there.
We're in a situation where we're in a supply and demand shock right now. What kind of precedents do you look at to try to game out how we could recover from this?
Well, there aren't any in recent history. Unfortunately, you have to go back hundreds of years, I think, to get anywhere close to the kind of movements we're seeing at the moment. So I think we're going to have to rewrite the rule book. I mean, obviously, we wrote it in 2008, 2009, so we have something to go on, but I think we're going to have to add another chapter to that, and that is, first of all, the fiscal chapter. I think governments are at least now beginning to realize they have to step up to the plate to provide support to businesses which are finding difficulties or experiencing difficulties. And the second one is we might have to rethink the actions of central banks on the basis of what the likes of the BOJ have done, and you might start to get calls for central banks to start buying equities just to support the market. Now, that would be a dramatic step, but we live in dramatic times, so those are the kind of issues which I'm sure central bankers will be having conversations about, and of course our old perennial favourite helicopter money could yet come back onto the agenda. So there are things that central bankers and governments can do, but they are, at the moment at least, unprecedented actions which remain very much at the edge of the actions that I think central bankers would want to implement.
In our last 30 seconds here, Peter, are the signals that the G7 is sending enough to give at least some comfort to markets?
No, I mean, I think this is a situation where markets really just have to play this one out. Governments and central bankers will do all they can, obviously, but I think the experience of the last couple of weeks has been that markets just aren't hearing those signals, or at least the signals aren't big enough. So whilst governments say they will do all they can, it may not be enough to convince investors that now is the time to stabilize markets.
We'll have to leave it there for now. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. Peter Dixon, Global Equities Economist at Commerce Bank. Karen, we'll send it back to you.
All right, Nathan, thank you. It is 5:53 on Wall Street. It's time for the Bloomberg Law Report. Let's get to the legal stories we're watching this morning from Bloomberg's Jeff Bellinger.
Public utilities in at least 34 states agreed to halt the practice of cutting off water to homes that failed to pay their water bills during the coronavirus crisis. A California federal judge threw out an age-biased lawsuit targeting Amazon and T-Mobile advertisements on Facebook, but gave plaintiffs an outline on how to satisfy her concerns. Cisco Systems settled a case in which women and minorities claimed they were paid less than white and male colleagues in similar jobs.
Bloomberg Law. Everything you need, all on one legal research platform, including guidance, analysis, and Bloomberg Market Intelligence. Find out more at BloombergLaw.com.
And now another legal story we're watching. The Supreme Court postponing an argument session due to the coronavirus outbreak. It's a term that includes blockbuster cases over President Trump's financial records and an $8 billion copyright clash between Google and Oracle. For more on the rare move, June Grasso speaks with Bloomberg Supreme Court reporter Greg Storr.
6 of the 9 justices are 65 or older, while 2 are in their 80s. So they're in the category recommended to stay home, avoid social interaction. But the court said other business will proceed as scheduled?
Yeah, they're clearly trying to do what they can. They have a private conference that's scheduled for this Friday that's going to go forward, but they said that some justices may take part in that through telephone, and they plan on issuing orders, which could include some new cases they're taking up next Monday, and they didn't make any announcement about other things like opinions and the next argument session in April, trying to apparently keep their options open for those, court trying to do as much business as it can.
So usually it's the last week of June that we get that flurry of opinions. Can the court still keep to that schedule, or might it have to extend the session into the summer?
You know, we're getting into speculation, but my guess is that there's a good chance that they will extend it into the summer. You know, they're always very busy this time of year for the next few months, as it is, especially if they're going to keep trying to hear arguments in the couple dozen cases that have been scheduled for March and in April, or maybe a little less than a couple dozen, about 20 cases total. If they're going to do that, they're going to have an awful lot to do, and we're going to be talking into the summer. And of course, there's no guarantee they'll be able to hear arguments in April either, so we may be talking about pushing things well into the summer.
Would it be difficult for them to issue opinions if they're not in the same building, or is that all done over the internet?
Well, they do a lot of their work actually by physical paper internally. They do a lot of passing around draft opinions by hand delivery from one office to another. In terms of actually issuing the opinions, once they're able to put them together, normally or traditionally the court issues opinions by taking the bench. We know they're not going to take the bench in March. We don't know whether they might change their procedure and just issue opinions electronically without announcing them from the bench. I would be surprised if the court didn't didn't go ahead and rule in all those cases that they've heard arguments in, even if they can't actually take the bench to announce them.
Because lawyers still like paper.
They just like paper. And this is a court, June, that doesn't, they don't allow live streaming of their arguments. No cameras in there. They're not really set up. They don't like to do things other than in person, the way they've been doing things for decades and centuries.
And that's Bloomberg Supreme Court reporter Greg Storr speaking with June Grasso. Catch more of that interview plus analysis of the latest legal news by subscribing to the Bloomberg Law Podcast or downloading the show at Bloomberg.com/podcasts. And attorneys can find exceptional legal research and business development tools at BloombergLaw.com. Right now, S&P futures are down 3.5 points. Dow futures down 37. NASDAQ futures up 48. The DAX in Germany's down 2.2%. 10-year Treasury down 25 30 seconds, yield 0.79%. Yield on the 2-year, 0.36%, and the 30-year yield 1.37%. The euro is at 1.1101 against the dollar. And Bloomberg Daybreak continues. This is Bloomberg.
Hey, have you heard? The Mayor of London has launched his latest van scrappage scheme to help tackle London's toxic air. Small businesses or sole traders like me with a polluting van could now get £7,000, which you could use to trade up to a Euro 6 vehicle. And you could get an extra £2,500 towards running costs if you go electric. The scheme is now even easier to qualify for, and it's open to any businesses with up to 50 employees, like mine. So, I'm going to search TfL scrappage to see if I'm eligible and apply. You should do the same. To the Mayor of London and TfL. Every journey matters.
Welcome to Costa, the nation's favourite coffee shop. What can I get you?
A flat white, please.
And would you like to enter the 10 million point Costa Coffee Club giveaway?
Yeah.
And collect points towards free coffees and treats in store.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Registered Coffee Club members only. 18 plus, GB only. Excludes Northern Ireland. Purchase required. 9th of March to 5th of April. The question, what is your favourite branded coffee shop, was asked. See costa.co.uk for full details and T's and C's.
Capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio.
Live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studios, this is Bloomberg Daybreak for Tuesday, March 17th, 2020. Coming up this hour.
President Trump shifts his outlook on the outbreak, warning it could last through the summer.
They think August, could be July, could be longer than that.
The White House issues strict guidelines for the public, and Congress prepares a bill to stem the economic fallout.
New York City has reported 2 more deaths from coronavirus. Plus, it's the first big step in the U.S. to find a vaccine for COVID-19. I'm Michael Barr. More ahead.
I'm John Stash. Hour in sports. NFL free agency underway. The Giants signed cornerback James Bradbury. The Jets tackle George Fant. Baseball's opening day and the Kentucky Derby both pushed back.
That's all straight ahead on Bloomberg Daybreak. On Bloomberg 1130 New York. Bloomberg 99.1 Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 106.1 Boston. Bloomberg 960 San Francisco. Sirius XM 119. And around the world on BloombergRadio.com and via the Bloomberg Business app.
Good morning, I'm Karen Moscow.
And I'm Nathan Hager. Bloomberg Daybreak brought to you by Witham, a forward-thinking, technology-driven advisory and accounting firm helping clients be in a position of strength in today's modern business landscape. Visit Witham.com to learn more.
And U.S. futures have been rebounding from yesterday's losses. Now they've turned lower. It is 6:01 on Wall Street, and we check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures down 13 points. Dow futures down 92. NASDAQ futures still higher, up 29. The DAX in Germany's down 2.5%. CAC in Paris down 2.1%. And the FTSE 100 down 2.6%. 10-year Treasury down 23 30 seconds, yield 0.79%. Yield on the 2-year 0.35%. NYMEX crude oil up 0.9% or 27 cents to $28.97 a barrel. COMEX gold is down 1% or $14.70 at $14.72.40 an ounce. The euro 1.1090 against the dollar. The yen 106.63. And this data check brought to you by Interactive Brokers. Take the bond challenge by using the free IBKR bond scanner to compare available yields against those of your broker. Learn more at ibkr.com/bonds. Nathan.
Oh, Karen, thank you. We begin with President Trump making a sharp shift in tone on the coronavirus. After minimizing its impact, he is now warning the outbreak could last several months.
We'll see what happens, but they think August, could be July, could be longer than that.
It is a hard pivot for the president, who's now issuing stricter guidelines to the public.
Schooling from home when possible. Avoid gathering in groups of more than 10 people. Avoid discretionary travel. And avoid eating and drinking at bars, restaurants, and public food courts.
So far, we've seen more than 4,000 infections in the U.S. and more than 70 deaths.
The S&P 500 has slid nearly 30% from its peak, leading President Trump to concede a recession is likely, though he also expects a swift recovery.
I think there's a tremendous pent-up demand, both in terms of the stock market and in terms of the economy. And once this goes away, once it goes through and we're done with it, I think you're going to see a tremendous surge.
The White House is also pressing for ways to assist U.S. airlines, which are reeling from restrictions on travel.
We're going to be in a position to help the airlines very much. We've told the airlines we're going to help them.
They want $25 billion.
Well, we're going to be helping. We're going to be backstopping the airlines.
Airlines are pushing for $58 billion in aid. Over the past month, shares of United Airlines are down 55%. American has fallen 45%, and Delta is lower by 40%.
Meantime, the House has passed a bill to alleviate some economic fallout from the virus. That measure now goes to the Senate. Here with more is Bloomberg Washington editor Joe Sobchak.
Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin was over to the Capitol, met with Republicans, and the wheels have been greased now for this to go forward and probably get passed fairly quickly, and it'll go to the president's desk for his signature.
The Treasury Secretary Mnuchin also spoke with Republicans about additional stimulus measures, which he says they'll work on ASAP.
Cities and states around the country are closing down schools, restaurants, bars, and all public gatherings. Dallas is the latest to shut gyms and ban dine-in eating. The San Francisco Bay Area is taking it a step further, requiring people to stay home except for essential needs. We get the very latest from Bloomberg's Greg Jarrett in San Francisco.
The majority of counties in the Bay Area are sheltering in place. Safeway has put out an ad for 2,000 new workers as they can't keep up with the crush of shoppers. More than 100 chefs, bartenders, bakers, winemakers, public relations professionals, and culinary event organizers have all signed an open letter urging Oregon's Governor, Kate Brown, to close all Oregon restaurants and bars. She's thinking about it. Light rail is still running in Portland, but not many riders. In Seattle, King County metro ridership is down by nearly 50%. In San Francisco, I'm Greg Jarrett, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, Greg, thanks. Meantime, in Europe, countries are halting all travel to the EU for 30 days and working to stem the economic fallout from the virus. Here with details on that is Bloomberg's Maria Tadeo in Brussels.
We're going to see a recession in Europe. This is something that no one here in Brussels makes a secret of. Emmanuel Macron issued a huge credit line, 300 billion euros, for companies, saying no company in France is going to be allowed to go bankrupt. The Italians also trying to do the same. They also say they can leverage hundreds of billions of euros to kickstart growth. But the big question, of course, is before any of that actually happens, you need to see the numbers peak, and we're not seeing that yet in Italy, and that is the focus point. The hope is that once they do, everyone else will peak next, but those numbers are not pointing that way.
All right, now the numbers in Italy are about 28,000 infections with more than 2,100 deaths. Worldwide, the number of infections has surpassed 178,000. More than 7,000 have died.
The fallout for global stocks has been dramatic. Here in the U.S., yesterday marked the single worst day for equities since 1987. The S&P 500 finished the day with a 12% loss, closing below 2,400 points. Scott Meinert is Chief Investment Officer at Guggenheim.
In the worst case scenario, we could go back to the old highs prior to the financial crisis, which would put us in the 1,600 zip code. I'm not saying we're going there, but it certainly makes me pause before I think about loading up on equities.
We're seeing some swings in U.S. futures this morning. They were gaining, then they turned lower, and now they're gaining again. Mike Wilson is Chief U.S. Equity Strategist for Morgan Stanley.
This is a time for clients to not do anything rash, right? This is not a time for people to sell everything in panic. We've already had that. To have another waterfall decline on top of that would be historically unprecedented. Even in the 20s and 30s or 1987, areas like that, you usually get some relief. Okay, so we are expecting that at some point.
And for the first time since the Great Depression, the S&P 500 has seen 3 straight moves of more than 9%. It's now at the lowest level since December of 2018. The Dow is at levels not seen since 2017. Again, S&P futures, higher, lower, now higher again. They're up about 6 points. Dow futures up 59. Straight ahead, we have the latest world and national news, and this is Bloomberg.
Okay, Karen, thank you. 6:07 on Wall Street. Michael Barr is here with more on what's going on around the world. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Nathan. Some patrons in New York City bars and restaurants got in their final rounds last night. Starting today, officials have closed them because of coronavirus. Gyms and movie theaters in the city are also dark as well. It is the same case in New Jersey and Connecticut. It comes as 2 more COVID-19 deaths have been reported in New York State, raising the death toll to at least 10. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo wrote a New York Times op-ed calling for President Trump to use the Army Corps of Engineers to add more medical facilities to fight the disease. Cuomo later talked about it during an interview.
The people who are going to come in are the older people with the underlying illnesses, emphysema, heart disease, etc. They need acute care. We don't have those beds. What I'm saying now is we've been behind this disease all along. Let's get ahead of it.
New York City is now reporting more than 460 cases of COVID-19. In New Jersey, a third coronavirus death has been reported, with now almost 180 positive cases in that state. There is some hope on the horizon in the coronavirus pandemic. In Seattle, the first participant in a clinical trial for a vaccine has received an experimental dose. Dr. Anthony Fauci is with the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases.
We have the opportunity now, even though we will still continue to see an acceleration of cases, we have the opportunity to blunt that peak and essentially make it more of a mound, which would mean less sick people and less death.
Dr. Fauci says a vaccine is not expected to be available for at least a year. Ohio's health director has ordered polls closed just hours before they were to open in the state for presidential primaries out of fear of exposing voters and volunteer poll workers to coronavirus. British actor Idris Elba is the second big star to test positive for the coronavirus.
Look, this is serious, Now's the time to really think about social distancing, washing your hands. Beyond that, there are people out there who aren't showing symptoms and that can easily spread it, okay?
Actor Tom Hanks also tested positive. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on a quick take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg Nathan.
Thanks, Michael. 6:09 on Wall Street. Time for the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update. Here's John Stashower.
Nathan, wild day and night of the NFL offseason with big trades and plenty of free agent agreements, although no word on what Tom Brady's going to do. His options appear to be Tampa Bay, perhaps the LA Chargers, or staying with New England. Phillip Rivers has been linked to Indianapolis, Teddy Bridgewater to Chicago, but neither of those deals are done yet. Dak Prescott, as expected, staying in Dallas under the franchise tag. A couple of QBs are on the move. Marcus Mariota, who lost his starting job with Tennessee, has landed with the Las Vegas Raiders, and the well-traveled Case Keenum headed to Cleveland. Shocking trade when Houston sent three-time All-Pro wideout DeAndre Hopkins to Arizona for running back David Johnson and a second-round pick. Johnson had a big year with the Cardinals in 2016. He hasn't done much since. Hopkins, not the only big-time wideout in the news. Stephon Diggs traded by Minnesota to Buffalo for 4 draft picks, and Amari Cooper re-signed with Dallas. 5 years, $100 million. The Giants have signed cornerback James Bradbury away from Carolina. Giants said to be pursuing pass rusher Jadeveon Clowney once the first overall pick of the draft. The Jets have signed tackle George Fant, who'd been with Seattle. Ex-Giant Jason Pierre-Paul re-upped with Tampa Bay. Major League Baseball, who last week talked about a 2-week hiatus, now realizing it will be much longer. Opening day, mid-May at the earliest. And the Kentucky Derby moved from the first Saturday in May to the first Saturday in September. The Bloomberg NBC Sports Update. I'm John Stashower. Nathan?
All right, John, thank you. In other sports news, the family that owns the Orlando Magic is unveiling plans for a $2 million fund to pay its hourly workers. The DeVos family is earmarking money for about 1,800 workers employed at Magic games. They'll miss time because the NBA season is suspended. The team says employees will get paychecks for missed games through what would have been the end of the regular season. The U.S. futures have been swinging between gains and losses this morning. Right now, S&P futures are higher by 14 points. Dow futures up 122. NASDAQ futures gaining 93 points. This is Bloomberg.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. I came out in the 11th grade. Nobody was embracing you. The kids were cruel. It was very difficult to be gay. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma. The hard part was determining that I was going to do it, but I definitely didn't do it alone.
At age 30, with the help of her mentor, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
I have a mentor, Maria. She convinced me to continue my education and to finish what I started to get my diploma. Just never judges. She's a true role model. If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, go get it. You can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their business strategically. Yet, the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating platform, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
I'm Steve Meyer, president of SEI's Investment Manager Services. At SEI, we understand the emerging forces that will define success for asset managers and what firms will need to compete tomorrow. That's why we continually optimize SEI's global operating platform. If your business requires greater agility, our advanced technology, integrated best-in-class systems, and multi-asset expertise can be your catalyst for business transformation.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
Business.
Night is still young, but a little late to get into the wrong ride, don't you think? That's why I choose Ola. With secure start codes unique to every user, there's no way anyone can ride a car that's meant for you. Good night.
Ride the change with Ola. Download and sign up now. Enjoy no surge pricing until the 12th of April.
Hey, have you heard? The Mayor of London has launched his latest van scrappage scheme to help tackle London's toxic air. Small businesses or sole traders like me with a polluting van could now get £7,000, which you could use to trade up to a Euro 6 vehicle. And you could get an extra £2,500 towards running costs if you go electric. The scheme is now even easier to qualify for, and it's open to any businesses with up to 50 employees, like mine. So, I'm going to search TfL scrappage to see if I'm eligible and apply. You should do the same. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Where will 2020 take you? Somewhere where people care about each other, about our planet, about creating a better world for everyone and becoming the best versions of yourselves. Join a community of like-minded individuals at the University of Winchester. Apply by the 31st of March for a chance to win your first year in halls. Visit our website to find out more. See the bigger picture. Be the difference. Go to winchester.ac.uk.
This ad is made from 100% recycled commercials. Just like Smart Water's
all new
bottles are made from
100% recycled
plastic.
What's that number again?
100%. Every Smart Water bottle is made using recycled plastic, and because it's still
100%
recyclable, the plastic will be used again
and again.
Smart Water, now in a 100% recycled plastic bottle. Label and cap 100% recyclable, but not made from recycled plastic. Yet. We're working on it.
Hairy Bikers here. This message goes out to something very special.
Yes, we're talking to you, chicken.
Maybe we've been seeing too much of each other.
But times have changed, Dave.
We've been cheating on meat.
Thing is, Norse stocks make veggie dishes so irresistible that cheating on meat is proper tasty.
Our dear chicken, you were the fire in my life, but it's all about you now, aubergine katsu curry. Prepare to be wined and dined, my love.
Cheat on meat with no veggie stocks.
We're responding to this with all hands on deck. We are taking down any harmful misinformation on the coronavirus. We're working with WHO very closely and directly, taking down things they think are harmful right away, working with local health ministries. We're trying to get good information out to people. Tom, my fiance, and I, we just did, asked by the WHO director, a hand-washing video, and we're asking celebrities across Facebook and Instagram, anyone with a big following, to share good information So it's about taking down the bad and about getting out the good. We're also partnering with the UN Foundation and the WHO to launch a COVID response fund for them. We have a $10 million match. We've already raised $3 million on Facebook, and we're going to do our match whether or not we hit it, but we really hope people will jump in. And we're going to do the same for the CDC coming very soon. So this is about taking down the bad information, but also getting the good information and support out to people and to these incredible organizations.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app. Or check your local cable listings. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. We've been seeing U.S. stock index futures swinging between gains and losses this morning. Contracts on the S&P 500 and NASDAQ 100 indexes at one point rose by their daily limits. They turned lower, and now they're higher again. S&P futures up 21 points. Dow futures up 184. NASDAQ futures up 112. The DAX in Germany is lower, down 1.1%. 10-year Treasury down 28.30 seconds. The yield is at 0.80%. The yield on the 2-year, 0.35%. 30-year yields, 1.38%. NYMEX crude oil up 1.5% or 44 cents at $29.13 a barrel. COMEX gold down 0.8% or $12 to $14.74.10 an ounce. The euro is at 1.1084 against the dollar. The British pound 1.2154. The yen 106.76. And the VIX this morning at 80.69. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Michael Barr with more on what's going on around the world. Michael.
Karen, Senate Democrats are proposing a coronavirus aid package with at least $750 billion to boost hospital capacity, unemployment insurance, and other direct aid for American households, businesses, and the healthcare industry. Leaders in Ohio called off today's Democratic presidential primary to combat the coronavirus. Ohio Governor Mike DeWine said late last night that the state's health director declared a health emergency and ordered the polls closed. Election officials in Arizona, Illinois, and Florida said they were moving forward with plans to vote today. Major League Baseball has pushed back opening day until mid-May at the earliest because of the coronavirus. And there's word the Kentucky Derby is being postponed from May to September because of the pandemic. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Nathan.
Okay, Michael, thank you. It's 6:19 on Wall Street, live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studios. This is Bloomberg Daybreak as we continue to watch the volatility in markets this morning and over the last several days and weeks. David Rosenberg joins us now, chief economist and strategist at Rosenberg Research and Associates. Always good talking with you, David. It wasn't so long ago the White House was downplaying the risk of recession. Now President Trump is using that word himself. Are we in a recession at this point?
Well, I'm sure that a recession started in March, and you don't really even have to look at the data, although yesterday's move in the New York Fed Empire Index certainly resembled a recession in that particular metric. But you don't have to be an economic genius to see what's happening around you in terms of these now forced closures of businesses in key parts of the consumer cyclical spending sphere, and looking at how this is happening globally to see that we're just starting right now a very significant economic downturn.
In terms of the fiscal response that we've seen thus far from the House bill that's going to be taken up by the Senate today, are we seeing enough at this point in the U.S. to help businesses and consumers weather this?
Well, I think you answered the question. All we've seen so far are words. We haven't really seen deeds. And then it takes time for the fiscal action to seep into the economy. You're seeing other countries around the world already engaging in fiscal stimulus. I think the United States, given the wide partisan political divide, has been slower. And the hole is so big to fill that it remains to be seen. I think that you're going to have to see a stimulus package, and that includes, of course, saving households and businesses that face insolvency or bankruptcy out of this, given their intensifying cash flow strains, this package is going to have to be really significant. It's go big or go home. It's got to be at least $1 trillion to fill the economic hole, that the virus has unleashed on the economy.
Data compiled by Bloomberg show that the